What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. Give you a quick overview of some of the data points, break it down on what really moved it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did close 1.23% in the green. Absolutely epic close. And in all honesty, I actually thought it was going to be suppressed below that 1650 strike price, but the fact that it closed exactly on the point, that does mean the 1650 and below, all the strike prices are essentially in the money, equating to 274,000 in the money calls. I want to go over that and what that essentially does mean, but that is epic. So low today, 1618, high of 1673. Kind of low volume, but then again, that's been the case for SoFi this whole week. 39.9 million shares being traded, 43.2 is the average. What really gave the market a nice kind of push higher today was good data, and that was ultimately right here. So you had permits and also starts coming in better than anticipated. So of course, that was one thing that the Feds were somewhat cautiously just watching and monitoring, but this data is absolutely phenomenal. So that's kind of what gave the market a nice boost higher, although that did lower the chances a little bit for the likelihood of a Fed cut potentially in March. So January, I think that's already off the table, but for the March 19th, it did go down a good about 5%, something like that. So of course, the market didn't really like all that much the good data, or I guess this didn't like it, but honestly, I'd rather have good data than focusing so much on a 25 basis point cut. But that's just me, of course. But moving on, SoFi didn't have any news today, no SEC filing. So it was kind of just piggybacking off of the broader market. You had shorts increasing 101,000 shares. So ultimately, when it comes down to shorts, they've been somewhat stagnant this whole week. So if you watch my videos every day, going over some of the data points, that's been one common thing. There was one day that they increased or returned, I think, like 800,000 shares, but aside from that, every day they're increasing between like 30 to 100,000. So very much small kind of change essentially for them, but 11.68% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 124.58 million shares. So you didn't really you saw some activity near the tail end of the day, but clearly I think they just somewhat admitted defeat. But the big thing for SoFi today is the options. 43 million in calls, 5.11 million in puts. 47% of all the options being done today were optimistic in nature. And just looking here, the last 2 days, you've seen a very nice, notable increase in the overall premiums. So yesterday, 48,000, today 47. So days prior was 30, 15, 19. So definitely goes to show there's some level of FOMO kicking in for SoFi. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Of the call options that were purchased today, you see a consensus for it to be above roughly around that $18 range next week, and then the following week encumbering their earnings, still see a good consensus for it to be above 20. The bears are anticipating for it to be sub roughly 15, and then the week of their earnings 1650. So honestly, even the bears aren't that bearish. So I think in general, even the bears anticipating for it to be sub where it is now, that does equate to kind of higher highs. That's just my viewpoint, of course. But when it comes down to today, there was, like I said, 274,000 in the money calls. So a lot of these lower price ones right here, I think already would have been covered by market makers when it kind of boosted higher. So you have like 40,000 at the 7, 29,000 at the 8. The ones around here most likely weren't. So that will equate to more of a kind of a push higher come a Monday, as I've shared with you in the past, and usually does happen. Of course, they could be covering it after hours, but 67,000 at that $15 strike price, 12,000 at 1550, 25,000 at that 6, and like I said, with it closing exactly on that strike price, that does count as in the money. So that does add another 15,000. So assuming everything, so the 274,000 in the money options, that works out to be like 27 plus million shares. So yeah, it should make for a very nice boost higher on Monday, potentially even a gamma squeeze. So if you have some good momentum rolling over into, let's say, Monday, you have all of this, Then you have shorts somewhat just doing whatever they've been doing. So 124 million shares that are kind of stuck in limbo. Yeah, you could see a very nice push higher. And that's probably why the bullish options are kind of pointing for it to be roughly around that 18. So epic stuff. These are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So a fair amount of buying and transactions today. So definitely something I like to see. Over the last week and a half, you've seen a very big notable kind of reduction in the number of transactions, but luckily enough, algorithmic trading has been really making up for a lot of that. So that's kind of a good thing. Couple big transactions after hours, 22.6 million, 2.79, 1.1, 1.4. So pretty epic stuff. With it, like I said, closing at 1650. It is trading between these 2 points. So this R2 and this R1, 1639 is going to be the next strong support. 1658 and then 1689 is going to be the next strong kind of resistance point. So just watch for those, I guess, early next week. Stay tuned for my video this upcoming weekend where I go over some expectations, everything, price predictions, and whatever else. This upcoming week should be a crazy roller coaster, and most likely, in my opinion, I think you might actually hear from these two just to manipulate SoFi a little bit. And so these two, Wedbush and Compass Point, I know I've brought this up in the past, but they like to manipulate, so most likely they will give a rating next week just to try to scare and spook investors, and then they'll probably re-rate as well, encumbering the information from their earnings. That's just my thoughts, of course. But moving over to here, just to look at any changes. So still looks like 4 cents is that consensus among 13 analysts. And then moving over to the revenue, this one did go up slightly. So it went from 663.94 million to 669.12 million. So analysts are a little bit more optimistic on the revenue coming in Q4. So always a good thing as far as that. Maybe that's encumbering the recent news that came out yesterday, possibly, maybe. But aside from that, on the actual chart itself, so it is above the ALMA, both as well the 50-day moving average. Super trend is bullish, so that does mean you have algorithmic trading really working on your side, propelling it higher. So honestly, if the data and earnings comes out better than anticipated next week, then you could see a very nice continued run to even higher highs than what was previously accomplished in December. One thing to note though, because of SoFi's very epic kind of reversal right here that has caused it to get somewhat overheated. So first sign of weakness associated to SoFi or just the broader market, you could see a pullback. And I think that, I feel like this circumstance has actually played out where SoFi's had a very nice run leading into their earnings, and then it comes, you have a bearish rating. That's that kind of spooking moment. So I feel like David's done that in the past. I'll have to go back and kind of refresh my memory. But yeah, I think all in all, very epic close for SoFi. So over the last 1 week, it did close 20.26% in the green. So I don't think anyone's complaining based off of that. So let me know, did you buy the dip? Did you sell any options? What have you guys been doing? And where do you see things going leading into the earnings? Do you think the options is accurate, that around $18? Or do you think it's going to be a little bit higher? So let me know your thoughts. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon where I give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolute bangers, so definitely worthwhile to pop over there. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that, appreciate all of you watching and have a good weekend.